All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Transitional Champion podcast. Finally, on this Friday morning, it's been one of those weeks, everybody, but I am here. I am Dirt, and I'm along with my co-host, the nationalistic Nathan Kennedy.
Nationalistic. Oh man, we're gonna start getting like political and everything now too.
I know how you are.
I think I would rather be Nickelback, Nate, at this point.
I was going to say something else before the show started, but I decided at the last minute to change it. And probably for good reasons.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Probably for the best.
All right. So just a quick recap. We did decide we were going to start doing the show on Thursdays. Wednesday mornings were just a little too hectic with some of the other stuff going on. And then, of course, yesterday, Comcast decides that I shouldn't really have any internet.
Good old reliable Comcast.
Yeah, isn't it though? It always is that way. So
I've always felt like Comcast, Xfinity, however they're really branding themselves, that if it works, it works well, but when it doesn't work, it's very bad.
Yeah, and AT&T just moved into our area, so they now have the Fios, Uverse, whatever.
Yeah,
and it's the difference is with Comcast, I've got 150 megabit download, but only a 10 megabit upload. But if I switch to the AT&T, which I'd have to pay for the installation and go through all that rigmarole or whatever, but for about the same cost a month, it's 100 megabit down, but 100 megabit up. So it's the same speed, upload, download, which would make the live streams go a lot better too. So
something I'm thinking about making that jump, huh?
I'm thinking about it, but it is going to require them to come in and do a little bit of cabling and stuff. So
well, just tell them, ask for your release and then jump over to AEW.
Well, I'm at the point, I think, I have to wait like another month, and then I'm at the point where I can drop it without having to pay fees to Comcast. So,
all right.
But we'll see. I'll look into it. Anyway, we are going to be taking a look, of course, at Raw and SmackDown, but also a quick look at Major League Wrestling, because I did watch their Supercard that happened this weekend. It was Intimidation Games, right? Yeah, Intimidation Games. And it was in Cicero, Illinois, which is right outside of Chicago.
Okay.
And they had a 6-man lucha tag match. And they had the steel cage match with Filthy Tom Lawler versus Low Key. Okay. And, I talk so much about the WWE product and how it annoys me, and it goes on too long, and it's just so dumb most of the time. And so someone said, do you watch any wrestling that you like? So for everybody out there that wonders why I'm still watching this stuff if I seem to hate wrestling, is because there is other product out there, and I like that other product a lot. This show, I said 6-man tag. It wasn't a 6-man tag. It was a lucha tag, but regardless, it was the Lucha Brothers, which is Pentagon Jr., who was the big bad on Lucha Underground, if you ever watched that show, and Ray Phoenix in a tag team against Team AAA, which is the Laredo Kid and Taurus. And Taurus is actually a guy who comes out with a big Minotaur bullhead and wrestling in that.
I'm glad that gimmick is still
Mantar. Someone found a way to make Mantar work, and that's part of the reason why it's so great. But it was a lucha style match, which is insanely different from North America.
There's no like legal tags. It's just like you roll out of the ring, that the other guy just hops in.
Right. And so stuff is going on all the time, all over the place. And it was a high energy. And here's the thing. Major League Wrestling actually did like a full, I think it was like a 3-hour live or 3-hour event in front of the crowd. But then the last hour of it was shown live on TV.
Okay.
As Intimidation Games. And it was on beIN Sports, but they actually put it up on YouTube. So if you look on YouTube for Major League Wrestling Intimidation Games, you'll find that whole 1-hour live broadcast for free.
All right.
On YouTube. So if you don't have beIN Sports, you can still watch it.
Yeah, because I have never watched MLW at all.
And not only that, but this show marked the debut of Jim Cornette on commentary.
Oh.
He's not doing every show. He's going to be there for some of the big shows. And he is also being brought in to work out some of the stuff backstage.
Okay.
So Jim Cornette is going to work not so much as a booker, but more of a, that's a dumb idea, don't do that.
So he's pretty much going to say that about everything. I have I love Cornette. I actually have a story with Cornette. He came to. They were promoting like this Legends of Wrestling sort of thing about 20, 30 miles from Tyler and myself. And we decided to go because it was Cornette, George the Animal Steel, Tito Santana, Bob Orton, those kinds of guys. And we watched a lot of shoot interviews with Cornette. We know that he likes Sprite, but he was cutting back. So we got him a thing of Sprite, a case of Sprite, and some Sprite Zero, and took it to him, got free autographs. There weren't a lot of people that showed up at this thing, so we talked to him for a while. And then a quote from him, not from me, but a quote from him, because where Tyler and I live, Southwest Virginia, you can kind of formulate your own opinions. But yeah, he came to us, got up from his table, came over to us, and was like, "Hey guys, I'll be back over if you want to talk to me again. I just got to get away from these bucktooth motherfuckers." And then that's a quote from Cornette, because it's
right.
And he came back and we started talking to him again. And he was like, "Do you just want to sit with me at the table?" So we sat with him for like a good hour, just like talking about wrestling or whatever, while other people came up and got autographs or whatever. And that was really cool. But on the other hand, I know that his opinions on wrestling today, he's more of the traditional mindset. So a lot of the stuff he sees today, he's just like, "What is this?" But I love me some Cornette.
He's one of those guys where like he is the biggest a-hole you will ever meet.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can get on his good side, then he's your a-hole. Like you don't want to be the guy he doesn't like, but if you're the guy he likes, he's the best guy to have on your team.
Yeah. I felt like he liked us.
He
liked us.
Well, yeah, and we've had guys. There was a guy here in the Pop Culture Network for several years, Scotty Cash, and Scotty Cash was that way. He was the guy, if you're walking downtown and there was some guy, like playing the guitar with the case out with money, he's the type of guy that would walk up and he would drop in $1 and then he would go, wait, that was too much. You're not that good. And he'd reach down and try to pull out some change, and it's like, if you're the guy that he's against, then you got problems. But if he's on your team, then he's loyal to the death.
Yeah.
Anyway. So this tag match, they did explain, like Cornette and Rich Bocchini, who's the other announcer, they did like talk about how lucha's a little different, how the rules are a little different, how things work a little differently. They did explain it as it was going on for people who weren't that familiar with it, which was actually great for a lot of people, I'm sure. And then they actually, at the end of the match, people actually started throwing money into the ring. And that is a lucha thing. That is, if there's a great match, start throwing, dollar bills and stuff in there.
I'm thinking like quarters. They're just
beating them in the head.
Yeah, beating them in the head with it. Yeah.
But with it being around Chicago, there is a huge Latino contingent there. So I'm sure that helped with, getting that match over in front of that crowd. But I mean, it was a really great high energy, a lucha match has that intensity. And so that really helped. They had a couple video packages while they were putting up the steel cage, and it just showed some of the other stuff going on in Major League Wrestling, which is, good advertisements for people not watching. The steel cage match, Tom Lawler was the champion. He was fighting against Low Ki. The cage was actually, it was more like the old like WrestleMania 2 WWE style cage.
The blue cage,
where it wasn't blue, but it was those squares.
Yeah.
All
right.
Instead of it being like the fencing that they use nowadays. And so they did some spots. They actually worked it where, they're both climbing up in the corner trying to get over, and Low Ki knocks Tom Lawler, off, and he falls down, and Low Ki goes to climb over and then does the thing where he thinks about it for a minute, and he thinks about how he's up top and the guy is, down. So he gets up to, jump off of the cage, to splash him or drop kick or whatever. And Lawler jumps up, starts shaking the cage. So Low Ki slips, nuts himself on the sidebar. Lawler comes up. The two of them start fighting. They go over the edge of the cage, towards the outside. And, it's like stick the guy's leg through the hole so he can't climb down, and the two of them are fighting. The problem was that went on just a little too long, because it got to the point where the two of them were like crawling like Spider-Man style back and forth across the cage.
Yeah.
And it's like, all you got to do is drop and you win.
Yeah.
You know? So that went on a little too long, was a little, whatever. But then eventually it got to the point where, they're fighting and Low Ki hits Tom Lawler really hard and Lawler falls off. And then Low Ki goes like, oh crap. And he jumps off. But Lawler hits first. He retains the title. So
okay.
It was a good match overall, but some of that stuff at the end was just a little weird, but it's definitely worth going on YouTube and checking it out, because both of those, the Lucha match was a lot of fun and the cage match was a lot of fun.
I'll check it out. And I want to go back real quick on a point that you were talking about, because I as well got a message that was like, hey, I love the chemistry on the show, but it seems like you guys just really hate the product. And it's not a thing that we hate the product per se. It's just when
per se.
Well, it's just, you watch MLW and I watch like some other stuff too, like PWG and especially NXT. If I want like that actual, I just, they play it safe, and it's understandable because they want more out of their they're like to last long. Whereas these guys, I feel like they get a little more of a break. Their schedule's a little bit different than the WWE, like constant on the road thing. And that might not be the case with everybody, but I'm just saying, like, I understand why they have a safer style, but at the same time too, I wish they, especially with the rosters that they have, just let those guys go out there and do their thing.
Yeah, one of the things that WWE, they still have this problem where they feel like a guy is under contract, so they have to use him nonstop.
Yeah.
There's no longer this idea where we can stagger a bunch of guys and we'll use them for 9 months and give them a couple months off where they can relax and spend some time with their family, do some training, and then come back.
Yeah.
And work storylines where they can weave people in and out. They feel like everybody has to be in front of a crowd every week or you're going to forget about them. Even though they do so many video packages, they do so many recaps, they do so many, having guys cut promos while they're coming back from an injury and whatever. And they only seem to do some of that stuff when it's leading to a storyline, as opposed to like, here's this guy, he's been gone for a while, he'll be coming back in a couple weeks, just to put him fresh in everybody's minds. But yeah, they really easily could, almost in a sense, work out seasons where you would have, even a few months on, a few months off, a few months on, and allow people to, come out and if they stagger everybody, it would work out fine.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they don't do that. I mean, I understand you want everybody there for WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody who's on the show gets a higher payout, but still, you can do that. You can still have everybody there and have everybody get that payout, but still not have them be part of that nonstop touring circuit, because they do live shows all the time.
Yeah.
And it really does wear people down.
And even Roman Reigns recently had sort of pushed and said, like, I think we could really benefit from like an off season. And I think the way that you put that would work out perfectly if they could stagger it in a way that it's like these few guys 2 months off, couple months later, these guys 2 months off. It would help everybody, I would think. Yeah. And they it's not like they don't have a lot of wrestlers. They're sending out contracts to everybody, especially now.
Well, yeah, and especially with the way that they do things, where they build up to a match, and then at the pay-per-view, whatever, they have this big match, and then they have to do a rematch the next night on Raw, and then they have to switch it up with like another 4-team tag, corner match, whatever, something to get everybody involved to then move on to the next guys. You should have the guys who lose, like they go in, they fight, they lose, and then they disappear for a month or two.
Yeah, that would be cool. Something.
I mean, it would make sense, because if you're in a fight, like if you're a boxer or a mixed martial artist guy or whatever, and you go in and you have that big match and you lose, then you need time off to recover. If you're baseball, football, whatever, you go in, you have your World Series, your Super Bowl, your NBA final, and then you're off for a couple months. So they need to have that, they defend the title and then the losers kind of disappear for a while, and then you can bring them and work them back in, and that opens a spot where you move up, the next guy. So,
and I think it would help creative in a way too, because it's like, all right, well, now you have to take this other batch of guys and do something with them. You can't just rely on X, Y, and Z anymore. You got to do something
and
here.
it's a good way to constantly like
Yeah.
move guys up, and you move a guy up and it doesn't work out and he loses, and then he can go away, and when he comes back, you just put him at that mid level. You know, you don't have to worry about him still being at the top and trying to figure out an excuse for him to be up there. So, all right. Anyway, let's go to Raw. Let's see. We had Roman Reigns come out. He called out Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins came out. They talked about, you know, what it's like to vacate a title without actually losing it. And they said, you know, life is short. And they said something about, you know, it feels like we're back together, but we're still missing something. And they started talking about Dean Ambrose. Everybody in the crowd started chanting, you know, shield, 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 shield. And Rollins is like, you know, no. We put that behind us. It's time for us to move on. And then the music hit, and Dean Ambrose just kind of does like this, like walk out to the stage. It reminds me, I don't know if you've seen the meme, but like Angela Merkel at one point, like came walking out onto a stage and doing like this silly little dance thing. And it's almost like you're doing that type of thing, but I don't know. So anyway, so the three of them, they all come back together in the ring. And of course, before Ambrose even gets a chance to like say anything or, you know, start cutting a promo, Elias comes out and interrupts. And he smashes Ambrose from behind with a guitar. And as soon as he hits him, he runs away. So, of course, you know, Rollins and Reigns, you know, come running down to rescue Ambrose and to lift him up. And, you know, they're all like, the three of them are finally, here's the shot of the three of them all back together. Even though it was like a sneak attack, it's like they pick them up, dust them off, and help them. And you finally get that moment where the three of them reunited. That was 25 minutes long, I think. Something like that.
How do you feel about Roman? I like the more laid back approach with his promos. It just seems like they're finally letting him just go out there and be himself, which is what he should have been to begin with.
Yeah, well, like when they wanted to force an intensity on him that I don't think he naturally has.
Yeah.
I
let him
think
be cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think he really is in some ways kind of that surfer dude.
Yeah.
He really does seem to have that, you know, he's not that intense. And when he tries to fake it, it just doesn't work. And so when he gets on the mic and he starts to yell and they give him catchphrases and, you know, he's trying to talk about being like the big dog and it's his yard and whatever. And people are just like, you know, so if he can just go out there and just, you know, talk like normal and just be kind of smooth, because he does
just be the Samoa Joe, because he is the Samoa Joe.
I don't know about that.
He's Samoan and his first name is Joe. He's Samoa Joe.
Okay, all right. I guess technically speaking,
he is the Samoa Joe.
He's the Samoa Joe, but hashtag not my Samoa Joe. Let's see. They had Drew McIntyre backstage, talked about how the Shield broke up and they're pathetic, and so Baron Corbin and Bobby Lashley were going to be there. And they were going to do a big match.
I'm kind of sick of those guys. This is where it comes back to the whole like off season. Let's have people off TV for a bit. These guys could benefit from it, because it's just week after week. It seemed like all of this is just blended together, and it all just seems the same. And that's
well, especially because they just keep. It's like, how many times have we seen this matchup? Like, how many times have we seen these guys fighting each other? Or, you know, you have one guy versus one guy, but the other two are on this side and the other two are on that side. So it's still the same 3 guys versus 3 guys going on again and again and again.
Yeah. Anyway.
So they had Kurt Angle Boutside. They had Kurt Angle out there. Kurt Angle, Finn Balor, and Braun Strowman. Kurt Angle was actually in the ring. So Finn Balor and Braun Strowman got to walk out, but not Kurt.
Oh, so Kurt Angle got the jobber entrance, huh?
He got screwed again. Like, I don't know what the deal is with what they're doing with Kurt Angle. Like, if you're going to let him wrestle, he should be way up there and not in Corbin Burnson throwaway matches on.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, this was another one of those where they go to commercial, they come back, they do the entrances, they wrestle, they go to commercial, come back, they wrestle. I think they went to another commercial maybe and then came back. Like, it was long. It was one of those that felt like another, like, this is, I was honestly fast forwarding through a lot of this because I just, it's like, who cares?
And it's the same guys wrestling each other for what seems like 3 months in a row.
And it's not like they have chemistry. Like, it's not like you're watching two guys who naturally work well together, like when they would do like Jeff Hardy Jericho matches. And, they would do them like over and over, and you'd see it at the pay-per-view, and you'd go to the live event and you'd see it, and you'd see it on Raw, and you'd see it on SmackDown the next week, and you'd see it on Raw, and you go back, it's the next pay-per-view. But it's like seeing those two wrestle. They were great together, two guys. I'm not saying that Jeff Hardy is, the greatest wrestler of all time or anything. I'm just saying those two guys can have an entertaining match. So you have them going back and forth. They can play it a little more high flying, or they can play it a little more submission, or they can play it a little more just punching each other with some, stiff elbows and stuff. They have the ability to put together great matches. That's not what I'm seeing out of these six guys.
Yeah. Yeah. It just feels like it's all going through the motions. I think that's just the main problem that I have with the product. Like, you get some flashes between people that's like, oh yeah, the intensity, but sometimes it's just they're like out there just going through it. I don't.
Yeah. Anyway, that's
it just makes it kind of boring.
And then right back to how. Yeah, and that takes us right back to how we like wrestling. We just are not giant fans of the current WWE product. So, yeah. All right. They cut backstage to Heavy Machinery, and they were showing clips of Ascension and B-Team making fun of Otis and how dumb he is. And so then they cut back to Otis, and Otis said, "I'm sensitive. That hurt my feelings." So, okay. And then the other guy, Tucker. It starts with a T. I don't know. Tucker, he said, "We're going to find the McMahons and we're going to make this right." And they stormed off. And okay, yeah, sure. That's compelling, I guess. They had Natalya come out to the ring, and then they go to commercial, and they come back, and they had Natalya versus Ruby Riott, and Ruby Riott, who just at the last pay-per-view had that shot at the women's championship, loses to Natalya in like 2 minutes. Like, done.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Then they did this thing. These two guys from Saturday Night Live.
Oh yeah. Colin.
They're the guys from Weekend Update. Yeah. Hashtag not my Weekend Update. If it's not Norm Macdonald or Dennis Miller, I'm out. Anyway, they did this horrible thing backstage about how they were excited for the show, and one guy was wearing a hat for, I forget where they were. I guess they were in Philadelphia, so he had a Phillies hat on or something. And so then the other guy was like, "Oh, I can't wait for the next time you're doing a show in New York City," and he pulls out a New York City hat. And it was one of those where it had the little adjustable slider thing on the back.
It was just sticking out.
Well, and it's, I guess he had the adjustment wrong. So when he pulled it on, you could see the buckle was on it. So it had been adjusted, but he made it too tight. So when he popped it on his head, he actually ripped the stitching out on the other side. So yeah, he just had that thing dangling off the back of his head, which was, it started something on Twitter. It was like hashtag how to wear a hat or something like that. Started trending on Twitter. It was really weird. But it was just
the Twitter machine.
It was just really, really bad. And they did a couple of these during the show, and I guess they're going to do something at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be doing something at every Raw leading up to WrestleMania, but that might not be happening now.
It would probably be for the best.
So I don't know. It was pretty bad. They had Triple H come down to the ring, and he cut a promo on Batista, and he talked about Ric Flair. He talked about how he was there for Ric Flair's wedding, and then he was there when Ric Flair's son died, which got a little uncomfortable. But he went out like forever and ever and ever. And then Batista, they showed some video of Batista, and he said, I'm not there because I don't want to be, because I don't like that town. No offense. But maybe next week, I'll see where you're at next week. And if it's not as terrible as the place you're at, then maybe I'll show up there, but maybe not. And then that was it. That was the end of the video.
How many times did Triple H say Richard Fleer? Let me tell you about Richard Fleer.
Yeah, and it's because this is a shoot, man. This is a shoot promo. So I'm gonna use his real name.
It had a lot of like, this is a shoot, and like, hey, this is fake, but this is real. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Here's the thing. Like, there was a comic book one time, and it was about like these teenagers. I forget what it was, but of course they're all speaking to each other as their character names, as their superhero names instead of their real names. And someone actually made the comment, one time saying, I don't like that comic. It doesn't make any sense because everybody would just use real names. They wouldn't use the superhero names. And I went, no, actually, like when you get around wrestlers, we all refer to each other as characters.
Yeah.
Like when I see like Scotty, who I mentioned a few minutes ago, I don't say, oh, look, there's Scott Clark, or I got a phone call from Scott Clark the other day. I'd say, oh, I just saw Scotty Cash down at the mall. His real name, his last name is not Cash.
Yeah.
I mean, that was his wrestling name. When I see people, it's, everybody calls me PhD because I was Professor Philip H. Dempsey, PhD.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just the name. I'll be walking, and someone's driving by and they roll down their window, PhD, and it's like, oh, there's Bradley Stevens.
Like if someone else, like if wrestler A met wrestler B when wrestler B had another gimmick and then they went on to become famous for another, they would still refer to him by the gimmick that they met them as.
Right.
Yeah. So that's, I guess, just part of the code, but I don't know what the plan, because with the Ronda Rousey stuff and now this, why do you have to scream in our faces that this is fake, but you know what, this is real? It's like, what does that accomplish to, like, I don't understand. I think it's just
because they're trying to pull in more, like they've lost a lot of viewers. I mean, they're still not terrible, but they've lost a lot of viewers, and I think they're trying to kind of, especially with the way they're going on Fox this fall, kind of trying to reach out to people and being like, wink, wink, we know it's not real, but come along for the ride. And, Vince is always, he said, we don't do wrestling, we make movies, and a lot of the media that they do and a lot of the interviews, they say, if you look at guys like John Cena, like The Rock, they've gone on to do films. These are actors. They're trying to push WWE as a TV show, not a sporting event. So they're trying to, it's the most watched weekly episodic television show in the history of
Thanks, Michael.
And so, it's that, I think it just goes back to that idea where it's like, yes, we know that, but now come along for the ride is what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I get it, but at the same time too, I just don't.
I mean, there are different ways you can handle it. I think there are other ways that you could go.
More exciting product on television, faster paced matches, and I know that the Attitude Era doesn't hold up as much, but I kind of like that Crash TV style of like shorter matches, and it just doesn't let stuff drag out too long.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I mean,
they gotta find a good balance between that, because the product itself, just the matches, don't do anything during the week. Like, yeah, I feel like they turn it up on the pay-per-views most of the time, but especially on Raw, I feel like SmackDown's better about it. But on Raw, it's just boring, slow paced, and maybe they just want to. I put more people out there, have more matches then or something. Don't just, you got more people on the roster. Stop using.
Yeah, and especially like Raw has so much space that they have to fill in 3 hours. Yeah. You could very easily, throw in a 205 Live segment, an NXT segment, a UK Championship segment, do you like the first Monday of every month? The first match of the second hour is always going to be a 205 cruiserweight match. Yeah. And you've got a half hour there of the show that is a commercial for your other show. Where you could throw those guys out there. You can have some of the other guys cut promos, whatever. You don't have to like announce it as such, but it is a way that they can tie into some of those other shows and push the fact that they do have other programming. And they don't do that. And they for a while they kind of did when they first like lifted 205 Live off the ground, but then okay, it's like you've got your show, it's up and running. Now go away. We don't need you anymore.
I feel like they don't need 205 Live and just have those guys on Raw and SmackDown anyway.
But they need it to drive people to the network because the network really is the future of.
I feel like the stuff that drive people to the networks, like the 24, WWE 24, the Chronicle, all that stuff, like the documentary stuff.
Oh, and when they did the Monday Night Wars, where they went like week by week, the head up. Oh, I loved watching that. But like whatever. All right. So actually, what they should do is have someone go back. If you remember when they would show the shows live, at the same time, or even when WCW would start first and then Raw would come back in, they need to do a thing where they would talk about the segments. And then when they would start to cross over and what was happening on this channel versus this channel and kind of play them in order and do all the stuff like, a little more like make it a 3-hour head-to-head comparison thing showing exactly what was happening on this channel versus this channel. Because they kind of did that Monday Night War, but they did it. It was like a 1 hour for the whole Monday. Do a little more of that and then throw in, and they got to throw in more Thunders. I want to watch. I am the guy that wants to see more WCW Thunder on the network. Man,
I feel like you were the only one.
I'm probably, but that's only because the one they filmed here in town, I was standing right behind Tony Schiavone the entire time.
Oh, really?
So I'm on like 80% of that show. So like I want to see that one. Put that one on the network.
Give me a date on that one so I can go on the network and check it out and be like, oh, there's Young Dirt.
Yeah, 20. I think it was 22 at the time. So,
oh man, yeah.
There you go. All right. Back to Raw. Unfortunately, we had Stephanie backstage talking about how Ronda Rousey disrespected the title when she laid it on the mat and walked away. So she said it's now the title's vacant. So they're inviting Becky Lynch back. They're going to drop all charges against her, and they're going to have her sign some sort of contract for the match at Fastlane. Mm-hmm. She's going to fight Charlotte for the now vacant title, and WWE will not be held liable for any injury, yada, yada, yada. So they set up for that for later tonight. They had Heavy Machinery versus the B Team, the Ascension, Kurt Hawkins, and Zack Ryder in a big gauntlet match. And
at least they're all getting TV time.
I don't understand why Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder are now part of the heel contingent of tag teams.
Yeah, I thought they were faces.
But whatever. Huh. So Heavy Machinery just eliminated all three of these teams, so none of these teams matter.
Yep.
There you go. That was that whole segment. They did this like backstage, like WWE got some sort of big paycheck from Marvel to show this behind the scenes Captain Marvel video package, which once again showed Brie Larson with one emotion the entire time. Let's see. They had the two guys from Saturday Night Live backstage. They talked about like the one guy with the New York hat. He was like, "Oh, I'm all up on WWE. I know all about the Bushwhackers and Coco Beware and Razor Ramon." He mentioned. They walk by and they see EC3, and EC3 is standing in front of a mirror spraying himself with a water bottle, and he just starts staring at them. And they walk past him and they do this other segment, and he like doesn't move. Like he doesn't keep spraying himself. He doesn't turn back to himself in the mirror and make faces at himself. He just stares at them holding the bottle, watching the entire time, doesn't even move.
All right. Serial killer EC3.
I guess. Right? I'm fine with that.
Actually. All right with that. Be a change of pace.
Let's see. They ran into No Way Jose, Titus O'Neil.
People that don't matter.
Right, exactly. Guys who are not good enough to wrestle on this show, we're going to have you run into them backstage. They announced Tori Wilson for the Hall of Fame, and they played her video, which was 9 minutes of bikini shots and lingerie shots.
Can you imagine that? It's just like, find the tamest footage of Tori Wilson that we have, and they have to go through all of that.
Right, but it's the WWE Hall of Fame, but there's no shots of her wrestling. There's no one time she had a good Hurricane Rana. They're not doing any of that. It's
never held a title or anything.
Here's a butt shot. Here's some cleavage. Here's another butt shot. Here's bikini on the beach. You know, it was like, okay, all right, we understand.
Not to say that Tori Wilson and Stacy Keibler didn't have an impact or weren't popular, because they definitely were, but Hall of Fame worthy, not so much.
I do not disagree. All right. Let's see. Although, did you hear the rumor for the next Hall of Fame inductee?
I have not.
Okay, so our show, our show is on the Transitional Champion podcast channel, TCP, on YouTube. It gets a handful of views. Not a whole lot of people have found the channel. I also put it on my personal channel. It gets several dozen views. It does all right. I put it on the Pop Culture Network channel. It does pretty good there. Put the audio up on Podbean. A couple hundred people listen to it. Put it on iTunes. We've got a couple hundred people listening to it. So it's getting out there. It's working its way around. Apparently, we've had a much bigger impact than we thought. Because guess who the rumored next inductee to the Hall of Fame is?
No.
Brutus.
No.
The Barber. Beefcake.
You're lying to me. No.
Yep.
Don't know.
It's even such a powerful rumor that Dave Meltzer had to talk about it on Wrestling Observer Radio.
I feel like this is all BS.
They talked about how the two rumored names were Tori Wilson and Brutus Beefcake, and then they announced Tori Wilson this week.
No.
Yep. So there we go. Like I said, our show has a lot more impact than.
God. No.
You just Googled it, didn't you?
This might be the worst day of my life.
I might change our logo to, instead of being that gold trophy guy in the wrestling pose, to see if I can find the old LJN Brutus the Barber Beefcake and put that up there in its place. I'm telling you.
This is a sad day for the Hall of Fame.
They had Charlotte backstage. She talked about how she would put Becky Lynch.
Yeah, I like how you can just keep going.
Talked about how
I am devastated.
She would destroy Becky Lynch because Becky Lynch is a one-legged woman in an ass-kicking contest.
Shouldn't you have said last kicking, because that was on her shirt for a while?
Yeah, right. And she might have said that. Maybe I wrote it down wrong. Let's see. They had Rollins and Ambrose backstage. They talked about how they still had a mutual respect.
Rollins calls Ambrose his wrestling soulmate,
which was kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Ambrose kind of looked at him, and he's like, "Thanks, but no." He's like, "I got my own thing to take care of tonight."
Being a job.
They go to commercial, and they come back, and Elias is he's singing in the ring, and he talked about Philly not having a Stanley Cup, so that's a thing.
Okay.
Talked about Gritty. Like, there's a guy named Gritty. I don't know who that is.
The mascot. It's the Philadelphia Flyers mascot. He looks really creepy. You'll have to Google that. But he's very popular.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, he was new like this year, and I guess the internet exploded on the Twitter machines.
I see. All right. Yeah. So it's the new hip thing.
Yeah, it's a cool thing.
Elias is cutting edge. All right. Yeah. He also talked about like Bryce Harper eating manure on the side of the road. Whoosh,
Bryce Harper if I'm not mistaken. Played for the Nationals, signed like this huge contract. Now he's with the Phillies this year. So I guess that's just his way of taking a big old dump.
I don't know how it got to manure on the side of the road, but whatever.
Why is this a thing every week with Elias? It doesn't have to be every week, and I'm glad that he actually has been wrestling a little more. But still, we don't have to.
He's not a bad wrestler.
He's good. Does he still do the elbow drop? You should, if you can, just at some point Google his elbow.
I've noticed that they've sculpted his beard a lot more to look like late Macho Man.
Yeah, those are the kind of the vibes I was getting from. But check out his elbow drop. It was actually
as good as Chinese Pirate?
No, but it's close.
Man, because that was one of the best elbows. Like, I still think about that elbow sometimes. Sometimes I'm just sitting there eating a sandwich and I just stare off his face. Think of that elbow. Whew. All right. So anyway, they had Dean Ambrose come out and they fought, and it was all right. It was nothing special, really. I mean, it's one of those things. Like I said, Elias is talented. Dean Ambrose, of course, is talented. Just the two of them in a match, just okay. Dean Ambrose, he knows he's on the way out. He doesn't really care about a lot of this stuff anymore.
Nobody really knows, because WWE's like, if Dean Ambrose is on his way out, which makes you think, well, he's gonna stay. But then apparently, it's their way of throwing off like your Meltzers and your other online wrestling personalities.
Well, except the problem is Meltzer talks to people who are in the company.
Yeah.
So, they can say whatever they want on TV, but then as soon as the show's over, he'll call a guy who works backstage that he knows. He's like, is this what's going on? They're like, no. He's like, all right, cool, thanks. So, it doesn't matter.
I feel like he's going to stay, though. I don't know why. I feel like he's going to. Even though he should probably go.
Well, he has not signed a contract.
Yeah.
So he might be doing a Pillman thing where he's not signing the contract and it's part of the storyline, but at the last moment he will sign a contract. You know what I mean? Like, do the reverse Pillman. Now
Pillman is a guy that did that right. You want someone that's like crazy and he's zany and wacky. Yeah, Pillman was your guy. Ambrose needs to step it up a little bit. Anyway.
So let's see. Reigns and Rollins came down to the ring afterwards. They tried to talk to Dean Ambrose. Let's put the Shield together one more time. And Ambrose just no, and he goes to leave, and he goes over the barricade and through the crowd to get out of there. So of course Corbin Burnson comes out. He's with Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley. They start making fun of the Shield. They said, it might have been fun to do a 6-man match at the pay-per-view, but instead we'll just beat the crap out of these two losers right now. So they start to attack. And so, of course, they cut to Dean Ambrose standing in the crowd, and he's looking, and he's like, I don't want to, but maybe I should. I'm having second thoughts.
Yeah,
I don't know what I should do.
And stops himself and backs up, and then he's just like doing this. Like it looks like he's just dancing with himself.
So anyway, they end up going back and cleaning house, and all the guys are gone. And so you do Reigns and Rollins put their hands out, do the fist bump thing, and they're waiting for Ambrose, and he's like running around in a circle around him, and he can't decide what to do, and he's not sure if he should be into it. And then finally puts the arm in, and everybody freaks out. So the Shield is coming back, as they announced, for one last time for a match at Fastlane.
Sure. I feel like the only way that this match needs to go is they just need to destroy McIntyre, Lashley, and Corbin Burnson. I can't even call him Baron Corbin anymore. You got me just thinking.
Corbin Burnson, yeah. Somewhere Corbin Burnson is like, why do people keep tweeting to me? I don't understand. Yeah, so not only did they mention this was the Shield reunion for the last time, but Renee Young said, yes, Dean Ambrose is leaving and he's heading for greener pastures. And Corey Graves says, what do you mean greener pastures? This is WWE. And she says, you have no idea what he has planned.
See, that's what makes me think that he's not going.
Yeah, well, but at the same time, it's like she's married to him, so she might just be.
Yeah, I get that, but I just feel like by doing that on the show, it pretty much negates any of the news. So I feel like he's going to stay put. But if they're doing that, and won't he? They need to capitalize on it and actually do something with him that's like just grandiose and fun, and it'll blow everybody away and get people interested in the product. Because I honestly feel like Ambrose, Rollins, and Reigns are the only three guys that have really been, well, up until Ambrose recently, strongly pushed the entire time that they've been on the main roster. Like the Shield was virtually untouchable for the longest time, and they still had momentum. Like they were heels and they changed them to face, and it freshened it up a bit. They had some fresh matchups with the Wyatt family, and then Evolution and everything. And then they had Seth Turn. And maybe that was too soon, and it's also too soon that like they broke them up and now they're trying to piece it all back together, and it still hasn't worked.
Well, and it's one of those things where because of Dean Ambrose's contract, his contract runs out before WrestleMania, so it can't be a WrestleMania reunion under his current contract, which is why they're pushing for it to go ahead and happen at Fastlane, because it's basically now or never. But it would be very weird if Ambrose were to sign another contract, because then they could have done the match at WrestleMania and they wouldn't need to push it here to Fastlane.
But would you want a Shield versus McIntyre, Corbin Burnson, and Bobby Lashley match at WrestleMania?
Yes, if it was no holds barred and the Shield came out with kendo sticks and just whacked him with kendo sticks for 6.5 minutes.
Yeah, but I think
that's my WrestleMania moment.
I think the crowd is actually behind Seth Rollins, so we need to go ahead and beat Lesnar, get the belt off of him, and put it on someone that's actually going to be there every week.
Yeah, it's just a belt. It doesn't mean anything.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, why should a top tier championship title mean something in a company?
Not in this day and age. Come on.
Wins and losses don't matter
because it's not real.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, they did right after this next match. The next match was Tamina versus Sasha Banks, and it went like 2 minutes, and it was nothing. They had the Saturday Night Live guys were backstage after the match, and they bump into Braun Strowman, and the dumb guy goes, "Hey, man, is this stuff even real?" And Braun Strowman grabs him by the throat and pushes him up against the wall. And he's like, "Does this feel real? Does this feel real?" And then they go to commercial for 5 minutes, and then they come back, and he's still holding them up there. And, all the security and whatever suddenly swoop in and start trying to pull them apart, and they can't pull them apart, and they can't get Strowman off of them. And so then Strowman just releases them. And so everybody backs off, and he looks at him, he's like, "See you at WrestleMania," and walks away.
God, can you imagine how many wrestlers are rolling in their graves?
Some of them even on this show, rolling over in their graves as they wrestle.
Oh.
We had the Revival versus Ricochet and Aleister Black. They cut a promo with Black and Ricochet. It was not spectacular.
And I just put the shirt on last night to go to sleep in. This was not planned. I just throw that out there.
But you own it. So now
I do own it. It's a cool shirt. I like it.
So anyway, they went out and fought the Revival. Or actually they go out, they lock up, like they're getting ready to start the match. They do 3 moves and it goes to commercial. Then we come back from commercial. And we get a few more minutes of them wrestling. It was okay. Again, they just wanted to show that Ricochet could do some high spots, but then they showed Aleister Black doing a couple high spots, which was interesting. I didn't expect to see him do some of the dive over the top rope to the outside stuff. I was actually kind of impressed with that one. They said next week, Batista will be there to do a face-to-face with Triple H. And Corey Graves is like, "What do you mean he'll be there?" He said on his Instagram video that he might not be there if the town was terrible. And they were like, next week, we guarantee face-to-face, Batista will be here. So Apparently, like they forgot halfway through the show.
Good on Graves for calling him out for that.
So then the main event segment was the contract signing. They had Stephanie out there. They had Charlotte. They brought out Becky Lynch. They were going to sign the contract for the vacant title. This, of course, brought out Rousey. And she said, I wasn't giving up the title. I was telling you to make the title stand for something. You should have brought Becky Lynch back to have her be my opponent if this title is going to mean anything. So Stephanie's like, you're right. My mistake. My bad. Here's your belt back. And just gave it back to Ronda Rousey. So so apparently she's still champion.
I'm really starting to hate the build for this. I feel like they just screwed it all up, and it's just
so anyway, the rumor that we heard 2 months ago turns out that it's finally working its way through. The match at Fastlane is Becky Lynch versus Charlotte, and if Becky Lynch loses, she's done. But if she wins, then it's a triple threat at WrestleMania. So there you go.
God, they could have gone about this in a multitude of ways that would have been infinitely better than the path that they've chosen to do this with. It just seems like they're making it up as they go along each week. Like there was no long-term plan. They're just, let's do this. You have to apologize.
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels more like they know what they want at WrestleMania. They just don't know how to get there. And they get an idea and they're like, oh, this will work. Oh, but wait, we need to kill 4 more weeks. So instead of going ahead and setting it up and then doing 4 weeks of building that, they go, we have to tear it all down and then rebuild it back up over the next 4 weeks to make it work.
Stupid.
Yeah, just doesn't make any sense. All right, we got SmackDown Live, which the streak continues. SmackDown was a much better show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, go figure.
They put up a thing for King Kong Bundy at the beginning of the show, R.I.P.
Yeah.
They put it on the screen, and I'm gonna try, I'm backwards. I'm seeing myself on the screen. It throws me off. So they have King Kong Bundy's face. They've got him standing over here where my arm is, and it's like, rest in peace, King Kong Bundy, whatever years or whatever. Yeah. And right as the show starts, so of course, right as the show is coming on and you've got King Kong Bundy sitting there, the little thing pops up that says rated PG. And it's like right over King Kong Bundy's face. So it's like, oh, rest in peace, man. We're sorry for who is this guy? He doesn't matter anymore. Here's our rating.
Wow.
It was like someone really thought that one through.
I know King Kong Bundy was very vocal towards the company since he departed many years ago. I don't know if he was part of the concussion lawsuit. I feel like that he was. King Kong Bundy is one of those guys that by the time I started watching wrestling, he was sort of like in his twilight with the company. They weren't really doing much with him. So I didn't watch him in his WrestleMania 2 main event, but and I haven't really gone back and watched most of his stuff or the build to that. So any thoughts and opinions on King Kong Bundy?
He actually was one of those guys who was a lot more active before he got to WWE. He kind of figured out the Hogan trick when he got to WWE, where, if you watch his earlier stuff, he was, I wouldn't say like a Bam Bam Bigelow. He wasn't doing cartwheels and backflips, but he was definitely a lot more energetic. He was also a guy, if you watch the early stuff, he had a lot of hair. He actually wrestled for a long time with hair, and he lost a hair match and shaved his head shortly before he went to WWE. So when he came into the company, he looked almost completely different than the way he had looked before. And he realized quickly that he didn't have to do a lot of that big stuff. Like when you're wrestling for TV, it's not the same as wrestling in front of a live crowd. The same way that Hogan realized you only have to do some punches and a big boot and, drop a leg and you're done.
Yeah.
He had the same thing where he'd squash people in the corner. He'd pick them up, body slam them. He would jump on them. And that was it. That's all he would need to do for a match. So when he came to WWE, he wasn't, I don't think, as exciting as a wrestler, but part of that was the company and just the guys at the time and just how it was. But he was so charismatic and he was so great at working the crowd. Like, he was a guy who really could walk in front of a dead crowd, have a jobber match with a guy who didn't matter. You knew it was only going to be 3 minutes, but at the end of the 3 minutes, the crowd would just boo him out of the building because he knew how to work the crowd. He was one of those guys. Like, I can really remember at the time, I didn't have cable, I didn't have MTV, so I wasn't able to watch all that stuff unless I went over to a friend's house. But I used to get all the tapes because Family Video carried all of the Titan or Coliseum home video videos. So I used to watch all the tapes of all the specials, plus the Wrestling Challenge and Superstars of Wrestling and whatever else it was that they would show on TV late at night or early in the morning around here. And he was definitely one of those big stars. Like, he was a guy, he would walk out, he'd be on camera, and he just had a natural charisma. He just had a natural draw to him, where you're like, this guy is evil. Like, the way he portrayed himself and the way he acted was great. And then he started to do, I remember as his WWE career was winding down, he started to appear like on Married with Children.
Yeah.
And he was in some other movie where he was a moving guy. Was he in Funny Farm? Is one of the moving guys? Is that what it was? I don't think so. That doesn't sound right. He was in some movie where a guy's like moving across country and he played one of the moving guys. And I just remember like this guy's a personality, like he actually, has some stuff going for him. But I guess he just made enough money. And the reason why a lot of wrestlers, they'd like to do 1 or 2 acting gigs and then you don't see them anymore, was because once you get into the Screen Actors Guild, you get Screen Actors Guild health insurance, and then you have it for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You don't lose it. So Screen Actors Guild health insurance is like the best. And so if you can get a couple acting gigs, get into the guild, and then you're set for life. And especially with a lot of these wrestlers that did so much back in the day, they didn't have a lot of health insurance. A lot of them didn't really think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was great for a lot of those guys. So it's like, that's why Goldberg, did 1 or 2 movies and disappeared. That's why a bunch of the guys in TNA a few years ago did that movie about like the haunted swamp and, like the ghost in the haunted swamp, whatever it was. And, it's like, you see these things and you're like, why are they doing these terrible movies? But you only have to do a couple of them. You get into the Screen Actors Guild, you get health insurance.
I'm genuinely surprised that we haven't reached a point where if you're in WWE, and I know that they cover your injuries and pay for surgeries and everything, but they really need to figure out a way to get like decent healthcare to these guys, so they don't have to worry about that, at least while they are employed with the company.
Well, a lot of it is taking financial responsibility for yourself, and that's what a lot of guys don't have. It's like once you start making all that money and you're traveling, then suddenly, you go and see somebody's house and they live in this giant house and they have 4 cars and they have, maybe a new trophy wife and, like all this great stuff, but then they don't have a retirement plan. They don't save anything. They don't have health insurance because they don't think that stuff through. What they need. And everybody's like, well, they should unionize and whatever. It's like, I don't really know that that's so much the key. What they need are the guys who work with NFL players and NBA players and baseball players who come in and say, okay, you're making all this money. That money's only going to keep coming for maybe about 5 years.
Financial advisors. Yeah,
they need to sit down with take a Dave Ramsey course, figure out how to count every penny and make it count, So anyway, that's our aside. We spent
WWE financial advisor Lenny Bruce. I don't know, just made that up. Anyway, go ahead.
Wasn't Lenny Bruce a comedian?
I don't know. It was just a name that popped into my head.
Dave Ramsey is an actual financial guy who does financial clinics and stuff. He helps people to get rid of debt. So that's why I brought him up. He'd be a guy who would really do it. All right. They opened up the show. They had Daniel Bryan and Rowan coming down to the ring. They did a recap of Kofi Kingston being screwed out of the package. He said he went on and on about Kofi Kingston being not a leader. He said that the company shipped him off to India because they didn't want him around. Vince McMahon threw him out. He said, just like all the fans out there, they eat all those pancakes. The New Day comes out and throws pancakes because they're all fat and whatever. And speaking of fat guys, Kevin Owens. So Kevin Owens comes out.
It was good. I like this new
He's
Daniel
a good
Bryan.
heel. He's a good heel.
Yeah.
Like he knows what to say. So Kevin Owens comes out, and it's so weird to see Kevin Owens as full on face, because he's been heel for so long. But actually see him play things off as a face is really interesting. But anyway, he said that, Daniel Bryan doesn't deserve to be champion. He disrespected the title, of course, when he threw it away and brought out his own belt. He said he wished that he hadn't taken Kofi's spot. Like, he regrets that happened, but he's not the guy who makes the rules. And since he has this opportunity, he's going to use it, which is a great babyface thing for Kevin Owens to say. Let's see. Rowan ended up coming out and attacking Owens, and Owens and Rowan started going back and forth, and they had to separate them and whatever. And it set up a match for, I guess, the main event that night was going to be Owens and Rowan. Which,
speaking of in-ring chemistry, yikes. Then again, Rowan's not really good with many people.
Yeah, he works as like the brain dead guy in the sheet mask. Outside of that, he doesn't work that well, but whatever. They had the Usos come down to the ring.
Your favorites.
Do what?
Your favorites. Your favorite tag team of all time. No, the Usos. That's what I'm saying.
No, I was going to say,
favorite tag team.
I could probably think of some that were worse, but anyway. Like Fandango and that other, and
Tyler Breeze? No.
Yes, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
The Fashion Police? No, I love the Fashion Police.
Way worse. So anyway, they had they were talking about Miz and crying and whatever, and it's weird because the Usos come out and people are cheering them and they're smacking hands, and people in the crowd are like dancing along with the music and like all this stuff. And then they get in the ring and they start talking and everybody's like clapping and cheering, but then they start cutting the heel promo.
They're the cool heels, man.
Yeah, but it doesn't work. Like, I think when the Usos were babyface, they were Roman Reigns babyface, where they played way too much to the crowd and the crowd turned on them and they were like, you guys are like two little John Cenas. We don't like you. So they turn them heel, and because they're heels, they don't play to the crowd. They're cocky and cool, and the crowd
still likes it.
This is what we like. This is what we wanted.
The NWO ruined everything.
Right. So it's like if the Usos came out as the cocky, cool, calm, collected baby faces, then they would be a huge face tag team. But it's like WWE doesn't understand how to use them correctly. It's so weird.
It's that, and they just don't know how to gauge the crowd and base that. And it's like, all right, well, we'll do this. The crowd likes it. Play it to the crowd. They don't ever want to do that. But I'm going to ask you this. Is it really a heel promo if they're promoing on The Miz? Because you don't like The Miz. So how would that promo play out to you? You're probably. I bet you started dancing and clapping and everything. I hate the Miz.
Why I took time to actually think about the Usos this week, and I actually took time to think about this is how it would work with them as baby faces, because the Miz sucks. So, and the thing is, like, here's the thing, and I've said this for a long time. The Miz is probably a great guy. And they keep playing these commercials for what's the show? Ms. and Mrs. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I'm never gonna watch that show.
But he seems like a really nice guy. Seems like a great father. Seems like a devoted husband.
Yeah.
Seems really nice, but just he's not a good wrestler, and he's not a great promo.
He's not a good face either.
And all these people keep going like, oh well, he's such a good promo. It's like no, what he does is he yells.
Yeah, and then
And
he stutters and stammers on his words, and he tries to correct himself, and it throws him
and people
off.
assume that somehow that builds intensity, but all he's doing is raising the volume of his voice. It's not. He's not great at it, but he seems like a really great. I wish him all the best in the world. Do your show. Stop wrestling. Okay, so anyway, they had the Miz versus one of the Usos, and it's like I don't know an Uso from an Uso.
I don't know. I still don't either. The sad thing is, I still don't know which one is which.
I don't know my Uso from my Uso. Anyway,
all hate mail directed to dirt@popculturenetwork.com. You just see people's like, how can you not tell? Jimmy has this specific tattoo and Jay has another one. They look the same in the face. They are identical twins.
And I don't really pay attention to, like, if they had a tattoo, I don't know, there were different colors maybe, but.
And how weird would that sort of be for Naomi? Because she is married to one of the Usos, but if they look the same.
Well, that's like Daniel Bryan with one of the Bellas,
Yeah, but I almost feel like now, especially with Nikki and her boob job, and she probably looks like maybe a little bit has been done to her face, that they look different enough. But the Usos, True. I just can't tell. The Usos, I just can't tell.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, how do you look at a twin and be like, oh, that one's the hot one?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess it's part of how you carry yourself, how you talk, how your personality comes across, whatever. So anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, they ended up doing a thing where one of the Usos distracted the Miz, and so then Shane ended up doing like this running clothesline, launched himself off the steps to take out the Uso on the outside, and the Uso on the inside then tried to do some sort of like counter move on Miz, but Miz ended up reversing it and hit the skull crushing finale and got the pin. So Miz got his win back finally, for just in time for the title match at Fastlane, which I fully expect him to lose.
Yeah, I always hated how you could always sort of predict how the results were going to be for the pay-per-view based off of who had the advantage in the go-home show.
Which is something that they've done since like 2002.
Yeah.
Like, it's just break out of that habit,
Mm-hmm. And maybe they will with some of these matches. I feel like they would have to.
It still feels like you've got a 50-50 shot, that someone's going to win or lose, but it's still like it's like an 80 to 90% shot that they're going to lose if they win right before the pay-per-view. Like, they still haven't evened it back down to 50-50.
Yeah.
Which they need to do. All right. So anyway, next up, we had one of the greatest segments of all time. We had R-Truth come out and talk about his title. He said, of course, he wanted to be just like John Cena.
His hero. His childhood hero.
He talked about John Cena having the John Cena poster on his wall and John Cena bed sheets. And like, that's kind of creepy. But he goes, I didn't realize that John Cena did the open challenge every week. Damn you, John Cena. Which was hilarious. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
So anyway, they did their little dance break, and they cut to the crowd, and you see like the whitest looking people of all time doing like these little dances out in the crowd with them. So he's like, all right, we're going to do the open challenge. Let's do it. Lacey Evans comes out and marks down and watches, comes
what
down.
Are they doing with this? She did that on Raw too, right?
She turns around. Yeah, she did. I think maybe for Heavy Machinery
again.
But anyway, then she, walks back, and R-Truth is standing there, and he's really confused. He's like, come back, fancy glove lady. Like, he's like, all right, let's do this. And Carmella's like, no, you're not fighting her. You're opening a challenge for, wrestler backstage. And so that brings out Samoa Joe.
Yeah.
And so R-Truth is like, well, wait a minute. I got to rethink this. I don't want to do this. He's like, no, not Samoa Joe. So then Rey Mysterio comes out. And he's like, well, Samoa Joe and Rey Mysterio, I really don't want to do. Then Andrade comes out. And he's like, I don't know. I don't want to do this. And there's the three of them get in the ring, and they're kind of surrounding him. And R-Truth is saying there, like, I don't want to do this. And the referee like points to the announcer. The announcer's like, it's a 4-way match for the championship. And he does all the introductions, and they ring the bell. And R-Truth is still just standing there like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
This match was great, by the way.
Yeah, it was.
This was one of the best things I all week on the WWE shows. This match was so much fun. It was so good, top to bottom. They had Samoa Joe basically just beat the crap out of everybody else, just dismantle like Andrade and Rey Mysterio would be going at it, and Samoa Joe would just come up and clock Andrade, start attacking Rey. Andrade would come back, he'd turn around and just keep attacking Andrade, and it was like he just kept going back and forth, just dismantling everybody, taking them all out. He looked fantastic. They go to commercial, they come back, and Andrade's in the ring attacking Rey, and Joe is gone. And so you're just like, okay, well, I guess something happened during commercial. So anyway, the match kept going. Samoa Joe fought back up, started taking everybody out. They did a couple spots where it looked like, first of all, it looked like Rey was going to win, and then it looked like R-Truth was going to steal it, like he normally always does. But then they had Joe come in and do the drops and take the win and take that belt, and he rolls out of the ring and holds up the belt, and they go, "It's Samoa Joe's first title in WWE." And I go, that can't be right.
I mean, he was NXT champion, but yes, this is his first championship on the main roster. Yep.
Man, that's just
I know he's had a few WWE championship opportunities, and they for some reason didn't want to pull the trigger on him.
But apparently NXT doesn't count as being in the WWE.
Yeah, I hate that. They call them up and they're like, "Oh, look at these guys matter, and let's show you this." Oh, but it doesn't matter. But congrats to Samoa Joe. It's a shame that it is the United States Championship, though, because they seem to forget about it a lot. Yeah. And don't know what to do with it.
Well, it's also a shame that R-Truth had to lose it, because I've been loving these spots.
Yeah.
I hope maybe they give him a rematch, maybe at Fastlane or something. Maybe that'll be the Fastlane kickoff or something.
Well, I know that one of the matches announced for the kickoff show is Andrade versus Rey Mysterio. So,
which has also been really good.
Yeah,
that's been really fun.
Oh yeah, they'll tear the house down and probably end up being like the best match of the night.
When I went to the last live event last summer, it was part of the SummerSlam lead up. Someone gave me tickets for my birthday, so I ended up going to the live event, and it was the first time I saw Andrade. I hadn't seen him before, and he ended up having a match with Kalisto, I think it was, and it was fantastic. And I was like, "Wow, that guy's great!"
Yeah,
I was surprised.
Yeah, I hope he gets elevated and gets pushed up to main event, because he's an amazing talent. Don't squander that, WWE.
He's got to change his look though, because the unbuttoned white shirt thing just doesn't. It's in the pants. It looks like he's wearing like beach clothes or something.
It used to be worse. Look up some of his attire in NXT. He used to have suspenders. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's an improvement now, but yeah, it does need some work.
All right. So anyway, they showed the video from India with the New Day in front of the crowd of everybody, and talking about how they're going to be back in time for Fastlane. So I guess they'll be back in time to spoil whatever's going on there and try to get Kofi involved in the main event or something.
Yeah, I think Kofi's going to be wrestling Daniel Bryan at Mania. I hope it.
I hope so. Yeah, I agree. They had Samoa Joe backstage, and he cut a promo, and she mentioned how he had never won a title, and he said, something about it. It doesn't matter what's in the past or whatever, and this is what matters now, and I'll protect this belt against anyone who comes against it, or something like that. And the way he worded it was kind of weird, where it was like he wanted to make sure that like he mentioned the fact that there were other titles in the past. It's just like, this is the first one in this part of the company on Raw and SmackDown. Like, he made it very clear, like, this is not his first title,
Yeah.
They had let's see what they do next. Oh, they did Aleister Black did his entrance coming down to the ring, and then they cut away and went to commercial. And then they came back. Oh, and then they came back and did the New Day thing. And then they did the Samoa Joe thing. And then they go back to the ring and introduce Ricochet. So Aleister Black stood out in the ring for like 10 minutes during the commercials and the videos and everything before they finally cut back to him. So what the heck does Aleister Black do while he's standing out there for 10 minutes?
I imagine he just sits cross-legged in the ring, just sitting there in total darkness. Well, I guess it would be total darkness because
they dim the lights for the
yeah.
All right, so anyway, so they had Aleister Black and Ricochet versus The Bar, and again, I don't know what's going on with Sheamus and Cesaro. They are guys that should have a whole lot more talent at their disposal, but I guess they just feel like they're stuck where they're at, and so they've lost their motivation, and they're just not performing at the level where they should be.
I could see Cesaro when his contract runs out. If AEW is doing well, jumping ship over there. He's an amazing talent.
Or going to Japan.
Yeah,
signing with New Japan.
Yeah, they need to do more with him. I know that Sheamus is dealing with like injuries, like with his neck and back and stuff. So.
Yeah, but he's also like legitimately friends with Triple H, so I don't know that he ever would really leave. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I see him leaving the company, but like taking on more acting roles. Because I know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Well, I just mean I don't see Cesaro or Sheamus leaving to wrestle for another company.
Oh yeah. I don't see that at all. But Cesaro for sure.
Yeah.
It's a wasted talent right now.
All right. So anyway, the match was fine though, but Ricochet hit his spinny splash thing. That was really cool.
Yeah, it's cool, but at the same time, I'm like, that's a move that like that's going to catch up to him really quick.
Don't land like Brock Lesnar.
It's amazing that he can land that pretty much every time, but I feel like at some point he will miss it, and I don't even think about.
Yeah, well, who's the Japanese wrestler Hayabusa?
Yeah.
Who would do the 450 and he landed on his neck like 6 times. Like he kept having neck surgery over and over and over again. It's like, dude, just stop doing the flip.
Yeah.
It's like, obviously you don't know it, so don't do it. Anyway, so they had their match. Ricochet won, and then Nakamura and Rusev came out and attacked them. So this brought out the Hardys. So you had all 8 men out there, so they're obviously going to do something with those tag teams, probably a 4-way tag or
isn't the plan to Aleister Black and Ricochet, it's a triple threat tag match for the titles, isn't it? Them, Rude and Gable, and the Revival, if I'm not mistaken,
at the pay-per-view,
I think. Let me double check on that.
All right, well, you check on that.
Yes, triple threat match.
Yep. It did. Oh, okay. Yeah. I missed that. All right. Well, but obviously they're going to do something with all these guys. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe they're going to do Nakamura and Rusev versus the Hardys. Maybe that was part of the setup for that. I don't know. They had Mandy Rose and Naomi come out, and luckily it was very short. Mandy Rose won. But then Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose, they're celebrating. They go back up on the stage. They have their back to the entrance, and they're showing off for the crowd. And you see Asuka come out in her mask, which was like the creepiest thing I've ever seen. And then she like takes off the mask, and she's kind of smiling. And as soon as Sonya Deville turns around, she just like lets out this scream and kicks her in the face, and it was awesome. Like, I love Asuka.
Yep.
It was just fantastic. So then she attacks Mandy Rose, and
that's how she should be. She should be just killing them like every week.
Well, she grabs Sonya Deville and throws her into the entryway, the outside curved wall.
Yeah. And
then she picks up Mandy Rose and throws her at the wall on the inside. She hits that inside wall, and she breaks 2 of the LED panels. And suddenly, like, because it was like this. Like these rays of light were coming out, and all of a sudden the bottom 2 panels were just like stripes, like it just like, so she threw it pretty hard into the thing. So it looked fantastic. It was a lot of fun. That was cool. They go to AJ Styles in the back.
I like this.
So the lady backstage, whose name I still haven't bothered to figure out, asked him about Kofi Kingston, and he talks about, Kofi got screwed, and it's too bad Kevin Owens has been put in this spot because it's a very awkward situation and whatever. And so then they pan over, and Randy Orton walks up, and he looks at AJ Styles and he says, "Oh, you're talking about someone else deserving a championship match instead of focusing on yourself, huh?" It's like, it's no wonder you. What do you say? Like,
yeah, he's like
disappeared for 15 years.
No, he's like, I see why it took you 15 years to get here.
Oh, to get here. Yes, that's what it was, to get here. and he walks away, and they cut back to AJ Styles, and they only left it on AJ Styles for like 3 seconds. But in that 3 seconds, you can see him kind of doing like the, that was a mistake. Yeah, that was my best move. Probably gave too much time to that company. Like he's like, man's got a point.
Yeah.
Which was funny, but
I obviously I think we're leading to a Randy Orton AJ Styles match, and I'm all for that at Mania because these two guys I feel like could have a really awesome match.
Randy Orton, he's lost a lot of his intensity, but there's still something about him that just is captivating to see him in the ring when he wrestles. Yeah. And when he cuts the promo and he's allowed to do like what he did here, when they send him out to the ring with the microphone and they're like, "Hey, you got to kill 5 minutes," then it's like death.
Yeah.
But when he's allowed to do something, short, sweet, to the point like this, it's fantastic. All right. So then we had Kevin Owens versus Rowan. They had Daniel Bryan sit down at the announce table, put on a headset, and they were talking. And again, man, Rowan is just not at the level of everybody else with his wrestling. He's just, there's something awkward about him. And I don't know, I've seen it with some other guys before, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it's almost like once he starts to move, he loses control of his center of gravity. And so he has to like put out his arms and kind of widen his legs in order to keep steady.
Yeah.
And it's really weird. Just watch a little more closely next time you see him.
Well, he always kind of, it's just like stilted too. And like his movements, like,
well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. To me, it's almost like if his legs are too close together and he's trying to walk, he loses balance. So he's got to like kind of stiffen his legs and spread them apart a bit and spread his arms out, like he's trying to keep his balance. And it happens like when he runs, it happens when he bounces off the ropes. It's just, there's something really awkward about the way he moves. So anyway, it wasn't the greatest thing of all time. And at one point, Kevin Owens gets thrown outside, or he goes outside and grabs Rowan and throws him back in, and he's starting to go up the steps. And Daniel Bryan like stands up in the commentary with the headset on, but he's looking at Kevin Owens, and they're like 5 feet apart, and he's yelling like, "This is why Kevin Owens will never win. He's fat, he's lazy, he's stupid." And Kevin Owens like tries to ignore him and tries to go up the steps, but then finally he just turns and starts beating the crap out of Daniel Bryan. So then Rowan, gets on him, and Daniel Bryan and Rowan are beating up Kevin Owens, and wonder of wonders, Mustapha Ali's music hits. He makes his return, runs down to do the save. They end up, of course, they all end up getting back in the ring, and Kevin Owens is able to hit Daniel Bryan with the stunner.
This stunner looks pretty good.
And it is, of course, I don't know they should have used it here because he hits Daniel Bryan with the stunner, and Daniel Bryan rolls out of the ring, and he walks away with Rowan. I mean, Rowan is obviously helping him, but compared to how we've seen stunners in the past, with Vince like flopping on the ground and kicking his feet.
Oh, even Vince admitted that was terrible.
But guys, usually a guy takes a stunner and it's like he's out.
Yeah.
For him to like roll out of the ring and be like, "Oh, that hurt," it's like, I guess, but it should have more impact. But maybe it's because he didn't work up to it correctly or whatever.
Right.
I don't know. So anyway, so Charlotte Flair starts to wander down to the ring. They did a video package showing everything that's going on with Ronda Rousey. She calls out Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch comes out on the crutch, and the two of them get in the ring. I've got to say, Charlotte in the last month, she started cutting these promos. And it's like the promos didn't really feel like they were going anywhere at first. It's just a heel being a heel, talking heel. But as they've actually developed the storyline and they've started to actually put her in a spot and start to work this storyline through, the promos have gotten a lot better. They have gotten so good. She plays a great heel.
She does, but I hate her woo. Her woo is very weak.
Yeah, but she also kind of doesn't want to do it. You know, it's like
and I feel like she shouldn't. I hate that this entire thing is based off of, look at my pedigree and I'm Ric Flair's daughter. It's like there are ways to do that and not have it be like you have to pretty much do the same things that your dad did.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
And I also think it's dumb that she does the figure 4, but then she adds a bridge to it, and all of a sudden it's a figure 8. That doesn't make sense.
Well, you got to do something.
Yeah,
but I mean, and that's part of her like gymnast cheerleader thing.
Yeah, but just drop the woos.
Yeah,
because they don't sound good.
I don't know. Maybe she'll do an angle with her dad where he copyrights the woo and she can't use it anymore.
Don't give him ideas.
So anyway, so she and
wait, no, hang on. I got it now. All right. So she this all involves, she ends up in a relationship with Batista. Because Batista beat up Ric Flair in the Evolution thing, and then like it'll piss off Triple H because Triple H is like, I brought you into NXT and blah blah blah, and now you're with Batista,
brother.
There you go. There you go, all Vince. Right. Print some money. Do you imagine though Batista being like really douchey and like making out with like Charlotte in front of like Triple H and Rick?
Is she married in real life? I don't think so.
She was at one point. I think she's been divorced like twice, but I don't think she's married now.
So they can't like bring in the husband and have him get beat up or something.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, so Charlotte's out there cutting this great promo. Becky starts cutting this promo, and her promo is fantastic. The two of them are having just this phenomenal spot. And, Becky says something about like, I may be hurting, but I'm okay. And it really doesn't matter because I'll stop at nothing, blah, 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 kind of your standard stuff, but they're delivering it, just fantastic. And Charlotte just decides that she's had enough, and she just turns and she kicks the crutch out from underneath Becky's arm, which is a fantastic way to attack somebody. Instead of, because you figure someone's going to throw a sucker punch or kick him in the gut or whatever, but she like drop kicks the crutch, like basically attacks the crutch, to get it out from underneath Becky, which was great. So the two of them, start fighting back and forth, and eventually Becky is able to get her in a submission move. She what is it? It's the disarm her, she calls it.
Yeah.
Pulling back on the arm and putting weight on her knee.
Yeah.
So it's like she's screaming in pain, pulling on Charlotte's arm, but Charlotte's in pain in the move. And
I think a good way to, the closer they get to Mania, since they're building this up, is have Charlotte try to do that again. But when she kicks the crutch, like Becky's just still standing there and she's fine. Like she's healed and ready to go.
I was almost expecting there to be something where she takes off the brace and says, "This was all an act. I've been fine the whole time.
Yeah.
I can't wait for a fight."
Yeah, something like that.
But I wonder if they're going to save that until afterwards. So she'll fight Charlotte with a hurt knee. Mm-hmm. She'll find some way to beat her. Like maybe Charlotte will try to do something with the crutch, and Becky will reverse it and use the crutch on her, and the ref's not looking. So then she wins. So it becomes the triple threat. And then, on the SmackDown right before WrestleMania, Becky will be like, well, I can't wait to be in the ring with you guys because I haven't needed this crutch for 2 months. And I've just been trying to get rid of it. And she'll throw it aside, rip off the knee brace, and she's healthy. Yeah. That would be fantastic. Yes. That would be like a goosebump moment.
But they won't do it.
It makes too much sense. It's too good. They'll never do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, again, that was SmackDown.
SmackDown, an awesome show.
Yeah.
See, we don't hate everything. They just need to structure it and pace it and actually make things matter a little bit, make you feel something like excitement or whatever. And instead,
and doing this, I think, part of the problem, like I said, I haven't watched WWE product in a long time, except for like WrestleManias. I'll watch those usually. But for the last couple of years, I just haven't watched and part of it was I was trying to watch a lot of it. And I think that may be the problem. After WrestleMania, I may stop watching Raw because I only promised to watch it through WrestleMania for this podcast.
Yes.
I think after WrestleMania, I'm going to stop watching Raw, but I'm probably still going to watch SmackDown.
Yeah.
I may try to mix NXT in there.
Okay. I was going to say, I think like a good thing once we get past Mania is just to do the show like every couple weeks or maybe like after a pay-per-view and just sort of discuss everything as a whole.
The storylines and how they led up and good matches along the way. Yeah,
right,
that would make sense. I could see that.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to worry so much about trying to scramble to watch shows at the last minute if we forgot to. And
yeah.
All right. Sounds like a plan for now. But anyway, so this weekend is Fastlane. So that means next Thursday, assuming my internet doesn't go down again, Thursday, then we'll have a recap.
I'm not sick or anything.
Right.
Whatever.
You don't have to work 8 hours of overtime on top of the job that you're already working.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Don't forget, you can find more of the Transitional Champion podcast if you go to bit.ly/T, capital C, capital P, Oddcast. Oddcast is all lowercase. Bit.ly TCP podcast.
JEFFJARRETT.
Don't forget, you can also find the show hosted at the Pop Culture Network, which is popculturenetwork.com or thepopc.net. Or specifically, it is part of Locker Room HQ, which is the Pop Culture Network. So you can go to lockerroomhq.com if you want to find the show. You can also find us YouTube channels for myself or for this podcast or for Pop Culture Network on YouTube or through Podbean, through the Pop Culture Network Podbean feed, or to find Pop Culture Network on iTunes. And then I found there's like 5 or 6 different websites that are just like podcast aggregators that have pulled our show in, I noticed. So just if you do a search and you're looking around your favorite podcast site, you may find us on there as well, because we've now appeared in places that I never set us up to appear on. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It very well could be that there are 9,000 people in Russia listening to our podcast through some other podcast aggregator. And I have no idea that they're out there listening, but if you are out there, thanks for keeping track of the show, and we'll see you next time.
Pants off, dance off. No beefcake for Hall of Fame.
Whoa! That was low. That was low.